Hey friends, do you want to hear me talk about Aurora Veil Hyper Offense for about 15 minutes? If you don't, I don't know how you got here. You made some really interesting clicks to get to where you are now. You can stick around. I'm probably gonna talk about semen at some point. You might think that's funny enough for it to have been worth your time. I think Aurora Veil is really interesting because Game Freak's solution to Hail being absolutely terrible wasn't to really make it better in any way. Instead, they were like, let's make a really linear, weird sub-archetype of it, where also you get to look at a dog, which I'm fine with. Ninetales is a real pretty pupper, and I think everyone else is fine with it too, because it's like one of the teams that everyone tried to use. Like the week Sun and Moon came out, it's like everyone had to use Tailglow Circuitry, everyone had to use Pheromosa, and everyone had to use Aurora Veil. But everyone's like common folly was that they tried to use Sand Slash with it because that's like intuitive. But then you realize that Alolan Sand Slash is absolutely fucking terrible. So some genius, some unheralded scholar that surely won't be appreciated in their time, did the research, and they crunched the numbers, and they figured out, my god, I don't have to use a good move with a shitty Pokemon. I can use a good move with more of good. And then the Deep State took him out, because they got too close to the truth. And his name was Seth Rich. I think I got a little sidetracked. This one is from Ben Gay's Team Archive. It's super old, which means that it's probably not very optimal. And he wrote the most amount of words I've ever seen to describe it. You don't need to read it. All you need to know is that it's an Aurora Veil setter and 5 big boys. I guess Manafi's not that big. It's the biggest in heart and in having green numbers below its name, because you get the most large with it. You get regular large with everyone, and then you get extra large with Manafi at the end and just clean up. It's got Waterium Z, or Waterium Z. It's got the fucking Water Z crystal, because I thought if I got more crystals in my life, maybe Jill Stein will win the election next time. You can either use it with Rain Dance to give you +1 speed, or you can use it with Surf to give you a really, really gross water move that like kills Tangrowth after a Tail Glow, because Z moves are healthy and good. Just use it with whichever one is going to make your rope shoot further when you win. Ideally, by the point where you can sweep with Manafi, you will have lured like their Tapu Fini or Toxapex with Thunder Punch on the Mega Charizard. And if not, you will have just 6-0'd them with the Zygarde, because behind an Aurora Veil, its substitute doesn't get broken by Lando HP Ice, which is pretty good. Zygarde is pretty good. And also, Scizor is a Steel type. So just do that. Just do all of that in exactly the order I told you, because that's pretty much how all of your games are going to go. And if that's not the good thing to do to win that game, then don't do it. Don't do the bad thing. Do another good thing instead, you dingus. So Toxapex from behind kind of looks like that one thing from Age of Empires 2. Well, I guess it was from real life before it was in Age of Empires 2. But you know what I'm talking about, right? What is the Venn diagram of people who follow me and people who know about Age of Empires 2 look like? Let me know if you know the thing I'm talking about. Make a Facebook poll and then print it and mail it to me. While you're doing that, I'm gonna start this battle off real big, yo. I'm leading with my red eyes, black drag, and then I'm like, no, I'm scared. I want to do over. I'm gonna go into my this. It's supposed to be Snowy Flight up to China. It didn't fit. It's also a cocaine reference, so don't tell your youth group. I thought he was gonna lead with this fucking Scizor. That's why I led with the Charizard. That's what I would do like every time. I'd be like, they know I'm gonna lead with the Ninetales, so I'll lead with something else. I'm a genius! And then I realized that I have no defensive synergy at all, other than having one steel type, and then I just have no momentum. I tried to create some momentum for myself by U-turning off the Greninja, but I guess that kind of didn't do that, because I just fucking killed it. I really wanted to just like go into something and set up on it, but he just lets it die. So I'm going to go out into my Zygarde, and I'm going to see how much shit I can put on the screen real quick. I'm behind my force field, behind my doll, behind the layer of spikes because it's Sun and Moon OU. So I think that's a pretty cool win condition. Just make my Pokemon really hard to see, and maybe he'll just like forget what it is. I think that I should have just set up a Dragon Dance against the Landorus instead of trying to kill it, because I don't think that the Earthquake would have 2-hit KO'd me through the coil, and if I had managed to get even more green math below my name, I would have totally swept this dude, instead of just mostly swept this dude. Well, I guess it didn't matter, because I would have been curse-bodied by the Gengar anyway. Because the fake news will try to tell you that it's a 30% chance, but I think anyone who's played Pokemon for any significant amount of time knows what 30% actually means. This dude's gonna keep hazing me. Every time I try to have fun, he's just gonna keep fucking hazing me. But I'm actually kind of fine with it, because I'm perfectly willing to PP stall a motherfucker out of all 48 of his haze PP. But this dude values his time more highly than I value my own, so he's just gonna switch out into his own Zygarde. That's how you can tell the difference between Gen 7 and Gen 6. All the models are the same, everything looks the same, but instead of 2 Landoruses, now you get 2 Zygardes, and also usually a Landorus. But since his Zygarde is gonna get real angry at mine, that gives me a chance to go out into my snowy flight up to China and set up my tactical late game Aurora Veil. And this dude's gonna find out that this team is actually the most elaborate con ever, because it's like Double Dance Zygarde, Dragon Dance Charizard, haha, get pranked. The Ninetales was actually the win condition the entire time. It's got this really weird set with Nasty Plot, almost entirely because that just incentivizes them to kill you more quickly, because otherwise you're just like wasting your own Aurora Veil turns if they figure out that the cosmic brain strategy is just to not kill you, because Ninetales is actually pretty fucking worthless. Who knew? And I'm gonna play grab ass with this dude for a little bit. He hits me with the best Toxic in 2017 when I had like 7% HP left, and it's actually just gonna kill me on the perfect turn after I get real mad at his Zygarde. I went out into Draco Sack because I thought that he was going to go into the Toxapex, but it didn't matter, because like either one of them I could have just like, well, like if he had gone into the Toxapex, obviously he's going to switch into the Scizor, so I could have just doubled out into the Manaphy anyway. Really all I needed to do was just set up a Tail Glow with a Manaphy while the Toxapex wasn't out, so I didn't have to be worried about it hazing me. So I could just Hydro Vortex it, because, you know, because it's so much fun when you click a Z move. You can tell it's fun because you had to think about it a lot. You had to think about if you wanted to damage them for just a little bit, or if you wanted to damage them for a lot. Hey, guess what? I stole this one too. This one is from the team building competition thread. A few weeks ago, the round was to make an Aurora Veil team. This isn't the team that won that round, but that's fine, because the team that won the Charizard Y round had a Yanmega and a Forretress on it, so I'll let you draw your own conclusions from that. I just wanted to use this team because it was the first one I saw by someone whose name I recognized. It was my dude, Matthew C. a whole bunch of numbers. I just know that I've seen his name before next to teams that I also promptly stole. This one's built around Z Conversion Porygon Z and Double Dance Magearna, Shift Gear, Calm Mind, which means that you kind of auto-lose to Chansey, which is, you know, that's what you want. It's also got the worst Dugtrio set I've ever seen. It's Choice Band with Stealth Rock, because I think that he was really desperate to put Stealth Rock on the team, but like you don't actually really need to do that with Aurora Veil teams. a lot of the time. Like, it's nice, I guess, but I think it's the archetype where you can most consistently get away with that, because, like, setting up stealth rocks has nothing to do with putting up a force field between you and the other guy. And that's what I'm all about, because that's what I've got a lot of experience with in real life. Just there, I do it with emotional barriers. I'm gonna lead with Boo Boo Snowy. Isn't that crazy? I'm gonna lead with Ninetales on my Aurora Veil team, because I felt confident setting up Aurora Veil against any of his Pokemon, unless it was like Choice Scarf Magnezone, which no one uses anymore. When I saw the Tapu Lele, I was like, okay, if that's Choice Scarfed, it's not gonna OHKO me. But if that was Choice Scarfed, it probably super would have OHKO'd me. But that's fine, because that isn't ignorance. That's just confidence, baby. And I know that he's going to go out into the Magnezone on Magearna, and Magnezone is like the only thing that actually walls Magearna, so just double switch out into D-Boys on that. That's the hardest I've ever had to work to kill a Pokemon before. And then I had to work even harder to remember how to switch Latios into Keldeo. It's been a while. I don't know what I was expecting him to go out into, but I knew that he was definitely going to switch the Keldeo out, so I just double out into Quack Dot Wave, and like anything that he would have gotten into, it wouldn't have been able to kill me. The Tapu Lele is probably the least important thing for me to have killed, because that actually would have been a really good way for me to set up with Magearna later, but since that is what I killed with the Shadow Ball, this dude's like, oh shit, willing to buy Dragon Resist, and he just has to sack the Latios to my Latios, but that actually puts me in a terrible position, because like I knew that was going to be a Charizard X as soon as he sent it out. I had to Healing Wish into Boo Boo Snowy, not because that was going to threaten it in any way, but just because that was like my best chance to just make it lose a bunch of HP real quick to Flare Blitz. And then the Hail didn't help me get up an Aurora Veil, but it is going to help me do just like the little babyest amount of chip damage that I'm going to pretend was really necessary for me to kill it with Sucker Punch. I was so ready to just click Sucker Punch 8 times, but he's going to show mercy and just go for like the outrage straight up or whatever he was doing. If this dude actually knew that I was using Choice Band Dugtrio, he could have just won with Salamence at that point, but that's fine, because if you make your opponent think that you're smart enough to not be using terrible sets, that's pretty much good enough. That's as good as, you know, just doing it, because perception is reality, and reality is probably a simulation anyway. Well, anyway, that's my video. Bye.